but we really do want to just kind of dive into the game here at the start. And let's start with our things to watch for. Ted, when you look at Oklahoma defensively, what are you watching for? What challenges does Nebraska's offense bring?
Um, I actually really like their offense.
So do I. I've been
I
watching
really
it all
like it.
day, and it's kind of awesome.
Yeah, I really like their offense. They do a lot of really interesting things in the running game. I think they're struggling on the offensive line.
Okay.
And
That is extremely kind. Their tackles are too tall and too light.
they get way too deep when they pass set.
They vertical set like 9 yards deep.
5 kick steps.
They don't use their hands at all. I do think the center 75 is their best lineman for sure. The left guard's okay. They're playing a just absolute meathead at right guard in 73, who is awful. I mean, he's bad. I don't know how else other to say it. Now, they brought in 59, who's a young guy, and he rotated a little bit in that Georgia Southern game. But I just got to be honest. If our defensive line doesn't dominate this game, man, I will be surprised. Now, I feel like I said that going into last year's game against Nebraska, but this offensive line for Nebraska is not good. I mean, there's no other way to say it.
Right. Well, some of the stuff they do is really interesting now. And, watching the Georgia Southern game, Georgia Southern defensively, especially on the back end and even on the D line, does a lot of the same stuff that OU does. A lot of quarter, half on the backside. Now, what I thought was interesting, and I like it because I know it makes it really tough on defenses, a lot of crack from Nebraska. They ran a one back power with the crack. They ran the one back power to the trips and double cracked with the outside receivers, putting it all the way on the corner on the outside, and ran the one back power almost like at a sweep angle to put it way outside the box while everyone's playing the one back power tight like it typically goes. I thought that was really smart. They run just like Y motion where he's off the ball and will run lead inside and crack with the inside receiver. They run after all of the crack. Well, let me talk about this one. They ran a bunch out of trips. So you got trips to one side, just a single X receiver on the back, pistol formation in the backfield, shotgun with the dot back. And they run just a split zone, but it's interesting because they run just a Z motion, like zip motion across, and then they snap it and run the split zone. X receiver cracks and the zip like arcs, like he's going to block the defensive end to get him up the field, and then arcs on the outside, and then the tight end comes and digs him out. And it's just a bunch of moving parts on the back end to stay gap sound. And you're getting a crack almost every single play, some type of crack in the running game. Well, when they get down to the red zone, what do? Linebackers' antennas are up, safeties' antennas are up, corners for crack replace, right? If you get a crack, you've got to come and replace that in the run fit. And they start running what I call like a Zorro, where they fake the crack and then run a get open with the crack receiver, because whenever the linebacker sees him, he's trying to get inside of him and underneath, and then it's a fake and he's running up the field and the quarterback's getting the ball right away. They run a lot of interesting things at you. And like for me defensively, it's the type of offense I would love to go against, because like visually for me, I can see all of that stuff really well. But for guys that aren't experienced and don't understand bunch, don't understand crack and crack replace, don't understand like how that changes some of your gaps and your fits, and like what it means sometimes in the passing game, it can be tough. And we've got some inexperience out there, guys that are just their first year starting. So I like it. To say all that, to say I like their offense.
The concepts in the run game are sound. They're challenging, I think. And one of the really challenging things for Nebraska is like Anthony Grant, number 10, their running back, guy can play. And I am not comparing this guy to LaShawn McCoy. I'm not doing that. But I played with LaShawn McCoy in Buffalo. And we'd block the play, and he'd go run somewhere else. Off feel, off instincts. I don't know how he saw some of the stuff he sees. I see some of that from Anthony Grant, where they're blocking zone one way, and he just takes off in a complete different direction. And he just like, I don't know if he can just see it or feel it or what, but it's worked for him. I mean, he's found some big plays with that method. And the guy, he's fast, he's powerful, the whole thing. Like he's a good player. The concepts are good. The back is good, but still the offensive line is not. And that's where, when you look at Oklahoma's defensive line and how they've played up to this point, they need to dominate this game, because a lot of those intricacies in Whipple's offense won't matter if they're beating them up front. That's just what it is.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you saw that with Georgia Southern. Now, the stuff that they hit against Georgia Southern was like some missed tackle stuff, a couple of busts. Like Georgia Southern took a couple of chances and blitzed and just went single high and got picked and rubbed off and misidentified in the man-to-man underneath, and it turned into big explosive plays, and they didn't even need to do that. So they've kind of feasted off of those type of opportunities. But I'm totally with you. Like, our defensive line should be able to dominate this football game. Georgia Southern, they dominated the line of scrimmage defensively against Nebraska's offensive line. But, what's kind of scary is they did that, and Nebraska was still able to generate some pretty good offense.
Yeah. And I think Casey Thompson being, I don't know if he's a huge difference maker at the quarterback position, but I'll tell you, man, he's capable.
He covers a lot of holes for him. I mean, he's better than average. And if they didn't have him at quarterback, they'd be in some serious trouble.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else stand out? One thing about, and it goes back to their offensive line, and I think their left tackle got banged up at the end of the Georgia Southern game. So we'll see what that looks like for them going into this game. But they've got two tackles. The left tackle's 6'10", the right tackle's 6'9". They're tall. They don't play with good leverage. I don't think they've been particularly well. If you can shut down the running game, right, which I expect Oklahoma to do, even though I think Anthony Grant is a quality back, Reggie Grimes and Ethan Downs, whoever is playing edge, but especially those two guys with the length and the power that they've got, they need to whoop these guys. I mean, straight, because the way that they vertically set, they do not have enough sand in their pants. They don't anchor well enough right now to be setting the way that they are. So I expect if OU can shut down the run game, force them into passing situations, I think it could be a long day for Casey Thompson. I think he's going to be under siege if they end up in those situations.
Totally agree. I think our defensive ends can have a lot of success in one-on-ones. I think running some exit is going to be great. Is fast and as high as those tackles get back. If you run an exit where the ends first and get to the edge of the guard and then run the loop, I think it makes the guard way too vulnerable with how far they kick back, if that makes some sense. So I think just straight rush with the ends and some of the game stuff up front has a really good chance to get home. But they're getting coached too, so you do have to expect them to be better. And we're going to see some different stuff. What exactly it is, I don't know, but you're going to see some nuanced things that Nebraska has not featured offensively up to this point.
Yeah. So I went back and watched Pitt and Clemson last year, right? Because Mark Whipple was the offense coordinator at Pitt. Clearly BV was the defense coordinator for Clemson. And they found some success throwing the ball in the middle of the field. You know, it was Kenny Pickett slinging around. I mean, the guy could throw, but that's where in the passing game, that's where their money was made. So that's something to just kind of keep an eye on.
Well, I'll say this. I had a conversation with Brent Venables about like what he expects possibly to be different about their offense. And there's some things that they are working on that they feel like there's a pretty good chance that they're going to see, and that Nebraska has not run up to this point. I don't want to say what those things are, but there's some stuff like they've got their eyes on some things that they expect to see, some nuanced stuff out of Whipple that didn't really marry up with Scott Frost's mentality offensively. So I guess what I'm saying is Venables has a very keen eye for picking up Frost's influence on Whipple's offense, if that makes sense. So right. There's some stuff that they expect to be different whenever they play Saturday.
You're saying he's expecting it to be a little more Whippley and a little less frosty?
A little more Whipple on the frosting. Yeah, for sure.
There you go. All right. You got anything else with Nebraska's offense, OU's defense on the field?
Nope.
Anything else? All right, let's get to the fun part, shall we? OU's offense. Speaking of offensive lines that need to play better, that really is. I think the interior of the offensive line is what I'm going to be watching first, right? Especially in the run game, because while I don't think their defensive tackles are world beaters, 99 Ty Robinson and 82 Colton Feist, I can tell you one thing: without knowing what their weight room numbers look like at all, I can tell you those guys are strong as hell.
Yeah.
Especially 99.
Yep.
I can tell you he could squat a house and he can bench a house. I can tell you right now without even knowing. And we have not seen the interior of this offensive line. You know, Matauer, Rame, Murray, throw Conjal in there. We have not seen the interior of this offensive line create a lot of movement. So is this the week, right? Against these corn-fed dudes from Nebraska. Is this the week? I don't know. They struggled to get movement against Kent State. These dudes are going to be strong. They're not, I don't think they're great players by any means, but they do play really hard. So that's one thing, Ted. I know it stood out to you. Can you move 99 and 82? I think that could be a really important thing for this offense in this game.
Well, there's no doubt. And big and strong is great until you give up a first down and OU hits the gas pedal, right? And we saw them against Northwestern. Like, I felt that their defensive line was out of shape, and as the game wore on, became less and less effective. Tired, standing up straight, not firing off the football, and that really affected the way that their linebackers were able to play. They were giving up some stuff that Northwestern was running up and down the field on them, and they were lining up in bare gap sound on the inside and couldn't get any stops at all. So I think if we can get some movement, move the chains, and start going up tempo, it could just, destroy those guys. Here's my question to you. Will we see?
Okay, I know where this is headed.
Okay.
If I was the offensive line coach, which I am not, I would want to see how Harrison at left tackle.
Yes.
Wanye Morris at left guard.
Yes.
Andrew Rame at center. Chris Murray at right guard. And Tyler Guyton at right tackle. I would want to see how that looked.
Right. Option 2 is same thing except for Morris at right tackle, his natural spot. And like, I think because of the size and physicality, like, you maybe Bird at left guard because of what he brings and the type of explosiveness and punch he has.
If he knew what he was doing every play, I'd be with you, but I'm not so sure, man.
Yeah.
With the limited reps we've seen him get, I'm not so sure. But, and this is, and I've had some conversations about this, and it's frustrating because I think the best 5 is Harrison, Wanye, Rame, Murray, and Guyton. The problem is throwing that 5 out on the field together for the first time in this environment a good idea? Which is why Wanye Morris being suspended for the first 2 games was so frustrating for me, because you would have seen this combination at some point. You would have gotten to see it. You would have gotten to see how they played together in a game setting. Now you're going and playing in probably the loudest game you'll play in all year. Do you really want to try a new combo? I don't know. That's where I'm frustrated.
But that's the thing, is no matter what, it's going to be a new combo.
Right. Yeah.
Whether it's Morris at right tackle or Morris at left guard, it's going to be something new.
Yeah.
No, the question is do you trust Guyton more at tackle, or do you trust like maybe Bird more at guard? But I think that way better than I do, but I would think that Guyton has a chance to be pretty good in this game, considering how big, like, size is their thing. It's not necessarily speed. And I feel like maybe he'd be better against that.
I would play, just from how their defense is structured, right? Over the right tackle, you got 2 and you got 32 rushing the right tackle, right? So, which O'Shawn Mathis is 32. People may remember him from TCU. Long arm guys, a little leaner, right? Nelson, the left defensive end, or I guess he's the right defensive end, over the left tackle. That is the meathead guy, right? The guy that's going to try to bull through your soul. I like that matchup with Anton Harrison. His anchor's much better this year. I think he'll be able to sit down on all that stuff. But Guyton's length and athleticism, it is a good matchup for the guys that have up to this point been rushing the right tackles that they've played. So I think the matchup is good for Guyton at right. But if Wanye is a better all-around player, then you go with him. But it doesn't sound like this decision's even been made yet. So well, I mean, you never know. Sometimes Bill doesn't tell until right before they go out for the game, and I'm dead serious.
Well, I think week 1 we agreed that it was not good enough. I think week 2 we agreed that it was not good enough, but it was better than week 1. I expect, even if Wanye Morris was not playing, I would still expect the group that has been playing to continue to be more and more improved. So
left guard and center need to be better.
More physical.
Need to be better. Okay, so some other stuff we're looking at. So when you look at Jeff Lebby's offense, OU is majoring in 11 personnel, right? 1 tight end, 1 back, 3 wide receivers. But Georgia Southern, when you go back and you watch that tape, man, they had a lot of success in 10 personnel running the football. They spread them out. It created light boxes, and man, they gashed them. I mean, in some long ones. So I do wonder, will we see some more 10 personnel? So no tight ends, just, 1 back, all receivers. Or could we see OU stay in 11 with Braden Willis or Daniel Parker and kind of split them out and create some more space? Because if Nebraska plays those formations like they played against Georgia Southern, they're going to get gashed in the running game. I mean, or they better, maybe that's the best way to put it. They better get gashed in the running game. But I think it'll be interesting to see how much of that stuff we see, because Georgia Southern had a ton of success with it, man.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, just obviously not super intricate, but with my eyes, like what I would do is early in the game, I would feature a bunch of running game out of 12 personnel with 2 tight ends, 1 back power. We started to have success in the second half with that. You do that out of 12 personnel really easily. 2 back power, just motion one of the tight ends as a fullback and run 2 back power. Split zone out of 12 personnel, because the Big Ten plays 12 personnel way different than the Big 12 does. The Big 12 plays 11 and usually 12 as a nickel type of situation. The Big 10 does not do that for the most part. 12 is base defense where you've got the extra backers still on the field. And if you feature that run early, get them comfortable with playing base, then because we have no problem splitting our tight ends out as receivers. And I would split those guys out to get those backers in space. It's easy to motion your outside guys in and make those the slot receivers while the tight ends end up being the outside guys, and trying to find a way to exploit the middle of that defense whenever they're in their heavier personnel with more backers out there.
That and I love what you're thinking. We talked about that heading into the Kent State game. Would we see some more 12 personnel now that Daniel Parker's back? We didn't see, what was it, one snap of it?
One snap, and it was terrible.
And it did not go well. But maybe we see them implement more of that in this game. But kind of along the lines of what you were saying, if you have success running out of 12, right, and you have them in base defense,
they're in trouble.
They're gonna have to make a choice, man.
And they have to stay in it. Is the thing.
And we saw when Georgia Southern was gashing them, like they started playing a bunch of cover one.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're playing single high safety stuff, our wide receivers, our wide receivers can run by these guys, especially number 6. Sorry to pick on you, man, but you ain't got it. So I think that's a big thing to watch. One last thing in the running game, they played quite a few, when Georgia Southern spread them out, they played quite a few 5-man boxes, and that forces your safeties into the run fit, right? And Buford, number 1, and Farmer, number 8, if they got to make plays in space, the Sooners going to be in good shape, man, because those guys, they did not look very comfortable coming up and having to make one-on-one tackles. In fact, they missed a couple of them, and they were massive explosive plays for Georgia Southern. So if Lebby can formate some things and get those guys in the fit, ooh boy, Marcus Major, Eric Gray, one-on-one with one of those dudes, feeling really good about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It ain't Baylor. Like the safeties in the 5-man box against Baylor, whenever they get running game, oh my God, it's like watching a Prius get hit by a F-250. It's like those guys come so hard downhill. That's not what you're seeing. I think they've got plenty of options, but the key, like we've talked about, is it all has to start from the inside out. I mean, these are all fun theories, but if you can't block it up with your inside 5, then, you're going to be hanging on for dear life. It's going to be Mims running the Sandlot route, get open.
Yeah.
And
I will say,
which to that point, quarterback run game, you expect to see some sprinkled in?
I think so. And one of the reasons why, because a lot of that stuff, who's responsible for the quarterback and the quarterback run game, I really haven't seen some physically imposing safety for them that's coming up and just punishing guys. You know what I mean? Like and I think that, that's something Lebby will see and say, okay, I feel like we can let Dylan run a little bit and he's not going to get his head taken off by one of these guys. I haven't seen anything like that up to this point from them.
And it helps your tackles. It slows that edge down quite a bit whenever, they've got an offset back to them and the antenna is up. Like, am I getting zone read? Am I going to have to be responsible for the quarterback? It just slows those first steps down a little bit.
Yeah. And 44 and 32, I mean, by far the best edge guys that OU's played this year. Like they're not slappies.
Does Mathis look a little overweight to you compared to?
He looks slow to me.
I agree.
He looks still got that knee brace on.
Shape. Yeah.
I don't know. The last 2 years, he hasn't looked like the same guy he looked like when he kind of
2020. He had that 9-sack season, right? And
and he was like explosive and twitchy. It's like all the twitch is gone. I don't know. but he's still a long, lean, athletic guy. And he works hands well. He's got the 2-hand swipe. So it's going to be a nice challenge for Anton Harrison, Wanye Morris, Tyler Guyton, whoever we see at tackle. You got anything else?
I don't think so.